Well, welcome to the campfire sessions. I mean, it's a little bit different today. I know a little bluish, but it is what it is for this time of year.
What's up?
It's funny because like when you think about meditating and finding like a safe place to do so, a lot of people really don't think about how important it is to have that space where you're comfortable.
Yeah.
And, I kind of think actually because meditation and building that self-worth is a big part of your journey, I think really diving into those two concepts is going to be really helpful.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm excited to be here and to talk about these things.
So talk to me a little bit about what that experience and what that journey was like for you discovering meditation and how it really started to play a role in your journey.
Yeah, so I tell people that I have ADHD, and if I can learn to meditate, then so can they and get benefit out of it. And so, I mean, I tried, I think probably since my mid 20s to do some type of meditation, but never could get grasp what what it was and really calm my mind down enough to do that. It was kind of flighty, and so I gave a lot my put a lot of pressure on myself. And so as I started kind of about 10 years ago, this major healing journey, healing some wounds that I had inside of me, I was introduced more to meditation again. I was like, okay, I'll give this another go try. And so once I started doing that, it was still kind of frustrating at first, but then when I started to get more and more into it, and I started to open up more intuitive powers that I have inside of me, then I was able to learn to meditate, and so more on a spiritual basis as opposed to kind of the Western meditation that most people are very familiar with, the guided meditations. And so once I did that, I was able to really connect and I really got what meditation was. And so doing that, I practice do meditation every single day for, I mean, today I did like an hour and a half meditation. I did 1.5 meditations because I needed it. But I try to do, 30, 45 minutes every single morning, and it starts my day off so much better. The coolest thing about doing this meditation is that I'm able to focus more now. I'm able to concentrate. I'm able to train. It's kind of trained my brain to focus on pretty much anything. And so if I start to get a little scattered, I know I can just pull my brain right back, and I know how to do that. And I give meditation really the biggest advantage, the biggest thing that I've done to be able to heal. I'll say heal, but to manage the ADHD. Yeah.
It's cool to hear a story like that because I kind of come from a little bit of a different camp. I'm one of those people that when I got into it, it was brought up in a counseling session and I argued with the counselor for an hour. I'm like, that's not me. And then I went out back and I started taking crossbow practice afterward and realized I'm doing everything that I just spent an hour arguing about. And it's funny and it's ironic because a lot of us really had those meditation base layers already instilled in us through different hobbies that we have. And that was kind of where I fell into it. And I put the bow down and I sat there for a few minutes and I thought about it afterward. I'm like, this is comforting. This is
Yeah.
really cool. And I feel like I can really start to make progress, not only healing, but also advancing in life. But it was a matter of really stepping away from, I guess, that story of self-suffering that we all put in our heads and all the negativity that comes with that and finding a safe place to do it. And I'm curious what that safe place looks like for you.
Yeah, so I have little corner in my office that I've dedicated to that space. When I travel, I try to find somewhere in nature, on a porch or somewhere to meditate. But I have a little space that I have set up. It has some essential oils that kind of bring in the aspects of the calmness of what I'm looking for. I have my journal. I use an eye mask because it just helps me really get very very deep into my meditation, and then of course my AirPods, and they just sit there, and that's pretty much what my meditation corner is. Um, and so I've cleared the space out energetically, so it has really good feeling, really good space there. But yeah, I feel like anybody can. I mean, meditate. Sometimes I meditate in my bed. My husband's like sitting there talking or whatever. So I've learned to tune on the phone or something. I like learned to tune that out, and so I can still focus on the meditation. But that takes a lot of practice to do that. It's not something most people normally can do. Maybe it's the ADHD brain going off. But yeah, I think just creating a safe space where you can, I think where you can actually feel like you could focus in is very, very important to take the distractions away. Especially if you're first learning to meditate, I think is super, super important. The least amount. Putting your phone on do not disturb mode, focus mode really helps because the most aggravating thing is, especially if you use your phone to for meditation, guided meditations, is to have a text come through and then you're like completely out of your zone. You have to get right back into those beta waves. So yeah, that's what my meditation's a little corner looks like.
That's really cool. I mean, a lot of us kind of picture meditation as one of those things that it's not tangible for us because we don't really have that background. But realizing that you can do it in a small space or you can do it in a wide open space, I think
Yeah.
really makes it a lot easier for people to understand. I know when I take somebody out on a trail and we sit down on a tree stump or whatever and we just observe, I'm kind of working their way into the art of being okay with just sitting still and letting go of all those distractions. And I find that that's actually something that is really outside the normal vocabulary for a lot of people.
Mhm.
They almost feel uncomfortable putting down the distractions and just sitting there.
Yeah, we have to learn to clear our minds out because we're go go go, and our nervous systems are so out of whack that it's painful sometimes when they're so out of whack to sit in silence or to just stop what you're doing and just be and to be present. We're taught to be in our past in a way, but we're taught to be anxious for our future, and so we have to let go of those things and really concentrate on the present moment and be present with ourselves. And it's a practice. I mean, it's not something that, I mean, some people naturally can come into that and that's really amazing. But most people have to really start to slow those brain waves down. You have to start to take away the distractions and to get to a place where you're just in the present moment. And when you get to that place, it's such a beautiful thing.
I remember getting into that present moment without everything else compounding it and just feeling extremely uncomfortable that
Yeah.
day, that evening on the range. And when I stepped into the wilderness and I started really, the Japanese term of tree bathing and just
Yeah.
utilizing that power of observation, I really feel like I started to strengthen that muscle and be able to bring it back home with me and live in that present moment, which caused me to look at the past a little bit differently, as well as, the excitement for the future.
Yeah. I always bring my clients back to you looking at, I can't, if you can't like if your brain's just going or whatever, you always bring yourself back to the breath, because if we need to pay attention to something, and it has to be tangible, the breath is a great thing. Also, just a small candle, just don't gaze straight at the flame because of your eyes, but a little bit softly gaze above the flame a little bit, and to concentrate on the flame and look at the flame and notice like what texture is it, what colors is it, what would the flame taste like, and we have to get back into our senses. And it's a very almost it's not really, it's a mind thing, but it's also almost a body experience too, to stay in the present mindful moment. And so if we can start to incorporate that, if our minds are starting to go multiple places, is come back to that center moment, either that candle flame or just simply to our breath. That seems to have really helped. That's what's helped me and seems to help a lot of people too. Especially if you're not used to being, if you're not used to just slowing down, you're not used to just sitting and listening in nature. I mean, go take a walk in, just like you said, take a walk in the forest. I mean, just sit and listen to the sounds and just pay attention to the sounds. Pay attention to the way the air feels on your skin. I mean, start to pay attention to these things. It starts to, again, you're really training your brain to be back in that present moment.
I think one of the things that I really enjoy about meditation is all the questions that it arises,
Oh yeah.
because it really gives you an opportunity to build this new narrative. When I take it into the wilderness and I think about why do I feel the way that I feel right now? Like, for example, sitting out here, it's a little chilly. The simple answer to that is I probably could have put on a coat or a hoodie and I wouldn't be so cold right now since my heater decided to die.
Oh
But
no.
it's the adversities that come up along the way too that you
Yeah.
get to kind of dissect and work your way through. And I think it almost inspires that childlike curiosity. How as a kid you'd dissect like a Lego project or whatever, and you'd figure out how to put it back together. And that's what we're teaching ourselves to become much more comfortable and much more okay with putting these actions into practice.
Yeah. We're taught, I mean, such a society and the great, we're taught society to always be busy, to always be doing something, always be productive. And this has been going on since the 1910, 20s when we were, all the big, when all the revolution stuff started happening for the Industrial Revolution. We were basically trained to be robot workers. And so we've taught to be busy, to busy, 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 busy. And if you're not busy, you're not productive, you are worthless. You're not doing anything. When the best thing we can do, especially at times when we're starting to feel overwhelmed, is just sit back and slow down and just go into that stance. And I love the fact that you said the childlike mannerisms, the childlike curiosity that you get of putting something together and just noticing things because we don't do that. We're shoving all that portion of ourselves, which is what I call the inner child. We're shoving all that down and really just focusing on the busyness. But what's the busyness getting us? It's getting us anxiety. It's getting us stressed. It's getting us overworked. It's getting us burnout. And a simple solution to that is to step off the busyness and to just sit in nature, sit in the quiet and stillness of yourself. And the thoughts will come and the questions you have will come. And it's like you can have these questions, you could talk to your almost have conversations with yourself and get to really deep, get down to your intuition and get really deep with yourself and really get to know yourself. Most people I don't think know themselves. I don't think they have any idea who they are. They're just machines going on and on and on. But if you slow down that track and get back in like in nature, you're going to learn who you are. You're going to learn the value that you have within yourself. And that gets to be when you start to learn your self-worth too and start to learn who you are because we're all amazing people. We're all amazing different abilities, different things. And we don't ever know that if we don't slow down enough.
Which is one of the most uncomfortable things, as you mentioned,
Yeah.
that process and that journey to actually get to know who you are. And, to take it back out to nature, when you sit out there and you're just simply observing, you see the cycle and it becomes almost this thing that makes you feel small and insignificant. And you're able to build yourself back up because the vocabulary is actually sitting within your heart, but it's taking the time to sit with yourself and find center and find practices that brings that vocabulary out. For me, it was actually a matter of stepping away from traditional society and building that vocabulary, expressing it one swing of a hatchet at a time on the trail, and it was a beautiful process, but at times it was very scary. It brought up a lot of adversity to face. And through all of that, that growth, it brought out that vocabulary in a way that the self-worth and the self-value is now so secure that it doesn't matter what the outside world tries to put on it because I've got something that I can look at back at and say, oh yeah, I did that. I achieved this and get right back on stride.
I love that. That's amazing. Yeah. I think we have to sit with ourselves. And part of the sitting with self is sitting with our emotions. And the more that especially if we have anxiety or we have any type of fear or we have, any type we don't feel great about ourselves. Sitting with that emotion is so uncomfortable. But we have to process those emotions through because if we don't process those emotions through, they're still inside of you. They don't just leave. They don't magically disappear. They're still inside of you. And so, in order to process those through, you have to sit with it. You have to get really real with yourself. But once you start to process through that, that's you start to build the self worth. You start to realize how magical and how amazing of human you are. But if you don't process that, you don't process through the anger, or you don't process the fear, or the sadness, or even the joy. I mean, happiness is an emotion to be processed through. All of this stuff has to be processed through, and if we don't do that, then we're creating more, obviously, more chaos in our body which is one of the reasons why it's probably so hard for people to meditate too, is because they don't want to sit down and feel those feelings. They don't realize it's just a feeling. It's not, doesn't make you bad. It doesn't make you anything, doesn't make anything wrong with you. And it doesn't mean that is right or wrong. It's just a feeling. And so when we start to have that approach to it, we're able to sit down and with grace with ourselves and actually process through that and be more mindful of our situations and where we're at.
And I think that's where the real struggle comes in, though, because,
Yeah.
when we're growing up, we're taught that when we obviously we don't have the vocabulary to deal with those negative emotions and feelings. So we're punished for it. We're taught that those things are wrong to experience. And, it gets back to finding center and really learning to be comfortable with retraining your thought process. And that also gets back to the vocabulary that we use within our own heads.
Yeah, absolutely. The way that we talk to ourselves makes all the difference in the world. And most people talk to themselves worse than they would ever talk to a friend. Or I would say even their worst enemy. They say things to themselves they wouldn't even tell their worst enemy. And so why are we treating ourselves this way? That's because again, we haven't been taught how to properly love ourselves. We're not taught as a society nation. I mean, we're not taught to love ourselves. We're taught to love other people, we're taught to do other things, but we're not taught how to sit and love ourselves. And it's really sad to see this, go all this going on. But it's also cool that we can come back to again to back, like I said, back to center and start to process the emotions, process who we are, and find our good qualities. And a lot of that can be done in meditation, for sure.
I know I've experienced a lot of that through meditation, through, just different experiences and sites that I've sat down and actually meditated at. There's been
Yeah,
experiences where I feel like those feelings, those emotions that I allowed to define who I was or the experience almost get pulled out of you. And you get up from it and you feel a lot lighter. There's this new space in the backpack that you can fill with something else. And that's something that, I feel almost represents the idea of forgiving yourself for where you've been.
yeah, we have to have grace. I mean, we look at ourselves, we have to be this perfect individual. We have to, I mean, meditate perfectly. We have to do everything perfectly. And if we don't, we're worthless. But we don't give ourselves grace because we do the best we can do with what the knowledge that we know. And so why are we upset with ourselves when we didn't, I mean, we didn't know. Sometimes maybe we know better, but we didn't have enough gumption. So we still have to give ourselves grace. I mean, there's no such thing as, people's like, I made all these mistakes. I did all these things that I shouldn't, I wasn't perfect. Okay, that's awesome because those are the lessons that you've learned through your life, the lessons that have taken you through to where you are now. And if you hadn't learned those lessons, you would not be where you are now.
That's the interesting part that a lot of us are overlooking
Yeah,
is the fact that the experiences that we've had, they're shaping who we are in this present moment. And we dealt with the adversities and the things that we encountered with the vocabulary and the understanding that we had at the moment. And
mhm,
if you really allow grace around that, that's where the idea of forgiveness for yourself
yeah,
really comes from.
yeah. You absolutely have to forgive yourself. I mean, we're humans. We're here on a planet. It's an imperfect place. There's imperfections everywhere. How are we going to be perfect? I don't want to be perfect. I think perfect's boring. I think anyone who acts like tries to be perfect, that's a boring. It's a boring thing. So why do we want to try to be perfect? We want to be ourselves. We want to be authentically who we are with our quote mistakes that to me a mistake is nothing more than you just didn't like the outcome of it. So
I
do
think
something
the
differently.
irony of I think the irony of that is the fact that we know we can't be perfect. And
Yeah.
we try so hard because that's what we're taught to do. But if you look at the lessons within the failures or the coming up short, you realize that you're really strengthening your character. You're building
Yeah.
your resolve that way.
Yeah. I mean, you look at the top people who have accomplished some of the most amazing things in their lives that we never thought. They didn't just do it on day one, and they weren't perfect. They didn't go perfect system, perfect, perfect, perfect. They won't tell you that accomplishing it was the greatest thing they did. They'll tell you the path, everything that led them to that is the greatest thing they did because it developed their character, developed them into the person to where they could actually enjoy it. And that, I mean, we want things handed to us, given to us all the time. It would be so nice just to have stuff just like raining down, the sky and everything we want, but we wouldn't appreciate it. And it's not to say we have to work hard. Work hard. That's not the goal of it. The goal is to learn the lessons along it, so you will appreciate it when you get to it.
Well,
That's the whole purpose of it.
when I really think about this concept in relation to getting out on a trail and hiking or any outdoor activity, there's the fun of the adventure that we
Yeah.
get so caught up in. And all the things that come up along the way, for the most part, we're okay with. And we just kind of work through it and don't think about it a second time afterward. However, if we brought that approach into our everyday life, I think, the idea of forgiving ourselves would be a little bit easier because you realize, maybe on the trail, I'm not in the greatest shape, but I'm going to climb those 200 stairs no matter how hard it is to get there. And we do it because it's fun and it's an adventure. In life, when we come up to something we don't know and we make a mistake, or somebody makes a mistake toward us, we hold that against ourselves or them, never thinking or considering maybe there was a little lack of communication or a little lack of understanding, and there's an ability to learn and to grow.
Yeah. I was actually finding going on a podcast today talking about a little bit about this. We try to control everything in all the situations, and we have nothing. We have no control over really anything. We have a little bit. We can control the way that we respond to things. We control the way it makes us feel, how we react and process our emotions, basically. So if we can control those things, and those are the things that we can control, why are we trying to control everything else? It's so
That's
stressful to try to control everything else. I mean, look at nature, look at the birds, look at at animals. They don't try to con- they're in control of their deaths. Like they have one job, they're really in control of the job, they're going to do it. They don't try to control a bird doesn't try to control a monkey. A bird doesn't try to control the weather. It doesn't try to control all this thing. It doesn't try to control its next meal. It knows its next meal where it's going to get it. It doesn't control the stuff. We try to control every single thing. And that puts this state of mind. Our nervous systems are so shocked because we're trying to control everything. So if we surrender all this control and imagine like birds do, or imagine, like just like nature, and we just let things flow like nature does, it's so freeing. And it's so amazing. It's just such an amazing feeling when we start to learn to do that and start to surrender all of that in to it.
that's the biggest thing I think that through building meditation practices you learn is
Yeah.
the idea that you can surrender and just let things go, and utilizing that power of observation. You see that in nature everywhere you go. As we start to run out of time though, I gotta ask you where people can get in touch with you, find out what you got going on, all that good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm on pretty much every social media platform except for Twitter and X. I just don't make the time for that. It's a lot of work. So, but I am on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, all of those. So you can find me there. The best way to contact me individually is on my website. If you go to aliciafarricielli.com, there's a free consult form there. Fill that out, and then we'll have a conversation. If you just want to sit and chat and you're having a bad day, you need somebody to talk to, fill that form out, free of charge. We'll talk about it, and I'll give you some things to walk away with. Of course, if you want to sign up and work with coaching, I do mindfulness coaching, I do inner child coaching, all that fun stuff. So happy to, yeah, book a call on my website.
Alicia, it's been a lot of fun. Thank you for making time for me.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on here.
Absolutely. I don't believe in goodbyes or two finals. So till we meet again, whether it's this life or the next, have a safe and prosperous journey. Thank you.